safety, Sydney Brown out of Illinois. So to provide us with some more insight, I want to bring up our guy, John McMullen. He's going to be calling in for us. So let's see what we got here. Hey, John, are you there?
I'm here. How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing great, John. Pleasure to hear from you as always. Appreciate the work you always do. So please, can you give us the rundown on Tyler Steen, the guard out of Alabama, and Sydney Brown, the safety out of Illinois? But before then, the Philadelphia Eagles decided to trade back out of the second round. Can you provide any insight on that move as well?
Yeah, I mean, they did trade out of the second round, but remember they were late in the second round, obviously second to last, so they only moved down 3 spots, 62 to 65, and they got an extra 6th-round pick and a 7th-round pick on top of it. So now they have a 6th-round pick on day 3, 3 7th-round picks, and we'll see if things change from there. But yeah, I mean, with Steen, it's interesting because he's played only tackle at the college level, and they introduced him as a guard. So that tells you they project him inside a little bit different. Transfer from Vanderbilt, played 1 year at Alabama, big guy. So still, started out as a defensive lineman, switched to the offensive line. So, but, he played 4 years on the offensive line. So, it's an interesting. We knew they wanted to pick up some depth on the offensive line because they lost Isaac Seumalo in free agency. They lost Andre Dillard in free agency. So you sort of have to replenish, and that made sense. And then, of course, we've been talking about it a lot on Birds 365, everything else here on the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel, and the fact they needed some more competition at safety. And we'll say I'm a little surprised at Sydney Brown. There were some other safeties. Antonio Johnson, I thought, might have been better fits. More of a box safety again. It seems, for whatever reason, that's the talk about Terrell Edmonds as well. So that's sort of his role, but they needed to bring a safety in. And he'll be in the mix with Reed Blankenship, Terrell Edmonds, and Justin Evans. And competition never hurts. So he's also a good special teams player. So he should be able to contribute in that phase right away.
Yeah, I definitely see what you mean by that. I'm thinking about these guys, like you mentioned, the competition factor of it. Guys like Kavon Wallace, Reed Blankenship, none of those guys really are surefire starters. You can even say, even though Terrell Edmonds has starting experience, I personally believe that safety position is completely wide open.
Yeah, same here. I mean, Reed Blankenship played very well last season as an undrafted rookie when forced into action due to injury. And he played, it was about 300. I don't have it in front of me, but from memory, about 320, 330 reps, snaps, which is not, it's not a small sample size, but, it's not a large sample size either. So there's reason for some optimism, but I don't think you can just say, okay, we can count on Reed Blankenship. And Terrell Edmonds, he's been a 5-year starter in this league on what has been more often than not, at least a competent defense. So he's at least played in this league and proven he could be an average type starter, and that's helpful. But yeah, I mean, you want more of a splashy type presence like you had last year with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I'm not sure you have it, but again, it never hurts when you throw some competition in the mix. And that's what Sydney Brown will provide.
Now, when it comes to the offensive line, right, you brought in Tyler Steen, and I looked up some information about him, while we were speaking. He, throughout his time at Vanderbilt, even at Alabama, he has given up quite a bit of, quarterback hurries, and he's given up quite a bit of sacks as well. What is it about this guy? What is it about this player that attracted maybe Jeff Stalin and the Philadelphia Eagles to Tyler Steen? What is it about him that
well,
made them want to take a chance with him?
Alabama, Jeff Stoughton was very close to Alabama. He came from Alabama when he came to Philadelphia as a coach on Chip Kelly's staff. It's been that long. But if you remember when Doug Peterson left, there was a report. There's a very strong report from Bruce Feldman that he was going to return to Alabama. So he's very close to Nick Saban. He's inside sort of the pipeline of Alabama. So he knows everything about those players. And Stout, I mean, he likes players. He sees traits that can translate. You see already how his mind works. He's played, right tackle, left tackle, and they're already announcing him as a guard. So you see, he sees something in those traits in his body and the way he plays that he's better suited inside. And you mentioned some of those issues in pass protection. Maybe he's not cut out for the speed rush, but if you move him inside, all of a sudden you can tap into his strength as a player. You sort of always trust Jeff Stoutland, and
Right.
you kind of know he's going to get the most out of a prospect. And this is we're talking early third round, so this is a guy with some skill, and we'll see how it shakes out. But it should be good depth for the Eagles that needed to replenish that. And obviously they don't need him to play right away, so that
Of
helps.
course. Yeah, it definitely helps, being around guys like Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, Kelsey, Mailata. He has a lot of guys around him that can definitely coach him up and help him, essentially round out those raw tools that he has. So for the Philadelphia Eagles, their next pick isn't until the 6th round. Do you see them at any point, I don't know, maybe trading back up into the late third? Do you predict any other movement? We know Howie Roseman is pretty unpredictable. John, you still there? I think we lost John. So
You got me?
yeah, there we go. Got you, John. All right. So yeah, did you get my question?
Yeah, I heard you. It must have dropped off for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if he's got the wherewithal to move back in here. And this is not the stage where you want to, come in, use a pick from next year to try to get back in at this stage of the game. So you never say never with Howie, so you leave the door open just a crack at all times. But I don't see it. What he was able to do, obviously, by moving down, getting 2 extra picks, so he'll be able to get some bodies tomorrow and day 3. And he obviously, when he does things like that, that means he's got a cluster of players he feels comfortable with. So when he goes down 3 spots, he knows he's got a group of players, and even if 1 or 2 go in between, he's going to be comfortable with the players he's got on the board, and that's what happened. I don't see it as far as moving back in tonight, and he'll get back at it tomorrow. But overall, if you want to go back to the first round, the talent they added there, pretty significant. And now you sort of have the role players early third round. You got some nice depth on the offensive line, and you got another body to compete at safety, which makes sense.
So you mentioned, day one, right? Bringing in a Jalen Carter, then you bring in Nolan Smith as well. Those guys, especially Nolan Smith, he provides needed depth at that edge rush position. And Jalen Carter, he provides. We know what he provides from a talent perspective, but that defensive tackle spot and that edge rusher spot just got a little bit deeper, right? What's your predictions in terms of how that rotation may go?
Yeah, I mean, it looks tremendous on paper. I mean, it just looks ridiculous when you talk about Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham, and now you add Nolan Smith to that mix. I mean, that on paper is the deepest sort of, and that's what the Eagles wanted, and that's what they envisioned. You think about last year, and they set the franchise record for sacks with 70, third team in history to do it, only team in NFL history with 4 different guys with 10 or more sacks. They had a great pass rush last year. And
Right.
this one on paper looks even stronger because you have that fourth guy. Remember, the fourth guy last year was supposed to be Jody McDonald's favorite player, Derek Barnett, but he tore his ACL in week one,
I completely
and then it
forgot about Derek
became
Barnett, John. Completely forgot about
yeah.
him.
Well, you can now. I mean, Derek's probably going to be gone post June 1st, but um, you know, you never know with injuries and people can get hurt. But and he got hurt last year.
Correct.
They went to Patrick Johnson, and they didn't get that what they wanted, and then they traded for Robert Quinn, and obviously they didn't get what they wanted there. So they want to come at you in waves, and now they got that fourth guy, and nobody would have batted an eye if the Eagles drafted Nolan Smith at 10. Nobody would have batted an eye, and they got him at 30. I think a little teams were scared off by his size. He's very undersized, 235 ish. But he runs a 4.39. He's got these explosive movement skills. And anybody who saw his press conference today,
Yeah, I
he
watched
is
that.
he is a natural leader. He's got tremendous energy, tremendous enthusiasm. I think Eagles fans are going to be very happy with Nolan Smith.
You mentioned Nolan Smith's, leadership qualities, right? And I watched that press conference, like you mentioned, and it's clear Jalen Carter leans on Nolan. It's clear Jalen Carter leaned on guys like Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean, right? Nakobe Dean was present for Nolan Smith's draft party. So you think about the Philadelphia Eagles kind of becoming Georgia East, I guess you'll say, or the Philadelphia Bulldogs. I know that's been a running joke, but as it stands right now, Nakobe Dean, Jordan Davis, it's a lot of pressure on those guys. Then you bring in Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. There's a fair amount of pressure on those guys as well, especially Jalen Carter, knowing what we know about the off the field issues, right? So, what's your projection for these guys in terms of the production on the field, and also, what's your thoughts on just the overall veteran leadership and the type of team the Philadelphia Eagles have been building with these Georgia players?
Um, I overstated. Obviously, it's really talented guys. I mean, we know the leaders on this team, and it's
Correct.
it's Fletcher Cox, it's Brandon Graham, it's Jason Kelsey, it's Lane Johnson. But you can see the beginning with guys like Nakobe Dean and Nolan Smith specifically, and even Jordan Davis to a certain extent. But their time will come. You can see them eventually growing into that role. But that's one of the reasons the Eagles felt comfortable bringing in Jalen Carter. Maybe other teams didn't. The Eagles, believe in their infrastructure, so to speak, and their locker room. And the guys, like, they know Fletcher Cox is going to be in the same room with Jalen Carter every day. And Tracy Rocker is the position coach, and he's played the game at a high level in the SEC, so he's got tremendous cachet from that. He's a veteran coach; he's been around for a long time. They have a lot of confidence that they can handle situations like this, and yeah, I mean Smith though, and Dean specifically, those guys exude leadership, but they're still very young players, and that'll come down the road, but you can see it developing already.
Yeah, you bring up a good point down the road, right? You're going to slowly start to see a changing of the guard. I mean, we have no idea, what Brandon Graham has left in the tank. This could potentially be his last season, maybe. I know he's been trying to get to that 15-year mark. I know that's a goal of his. And then you have Fletcher Cox, who's pretty much, again, another guy who's on the year-to-year rental. Jason Kelsey, another guy that's on the year-to-year rental as well. And you mentioned another thing. The post June 1st cuts. What do you anticipate being one of the moves the Philadelphia Eagles make around that time?
I don't think you're going to see a lot of cuts from their perspective. Derek Barnett might be one because of what they did. I think there'll be, you might see the Eagles going that route to bolster their roster with veteran players. If a veteran running back gets cut, something of that nature, the James Bradbury type signings, June 1st, salary cap casualties, they'll be on the lookout for that. So it's always, and Howie Roseman always says talent gathering season goes farther than free agency, farther than the draft, goes all the way up to the trade deadline. So he's always looking to improve this team.
So I'm thinking, right? The Philadelphia Eagles, they love to attack that time of they love to attack that area when it comes to finding players who I think we lost John. All right, so let's go back here. I think John lost his connection. So, all right, there we go. So we lost John. John actually has to go for conference calls. He's going to pretty much chat with these new players, these new Philadelphia Eagles. But there we go. All right, I think we got John back. Let's try to see what we got here. All right.
I was trying to hit the thing. I gotta hit conference calls here to meet the new players, but I just wanted to hop back on and say goodbye to the listeners, and thanks for sticking with us here on the JAKIB Sports YouTube page. Yeah, gonna meet Tyler Steen and Cindy Brown here in a few minutes.
All right, John. Thank you so much for your time and your effort, my man. You go in and do your thing.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, you guys. There you have it. John McMullen with the inside scoop when it comes to Tyler Steen and Sidney Brown, the offensive tackle and the safety, respectively. Tyler Steen coming out of Alabama and Sidney Brown coming out of Illinois, a Big Ten guy and an SEC guy. The Philadelphia Eagles are really starting to lock in on the SEC and the Big Ten, but really the SEC. Think about the players they have on offense right now in the SEC. They have